All right. Well, if you were following along on the Facebook page this weekend, the FB Lounge Facebook page, or me on Twitter at Mark Espin, it was a cold weekend. It was one of those weekends where you keep looking at your bet as you're placing, going, this is gold. I feel so good. Money. This is money in the bank. Can't wait to you start spending the money you've won before you even place the bet because you just feel so good.
Yeah, Mark bought 3 houses this past week.
Luckily, I don't make enough money to bet enough money, and it's all small. The units that I place are not exactly big time units. But I'll just say this: my Barstool Sports gambling account, the sports book account on my phone, the funds are running a little thin going into championship weekend.
Well, hey, that's what this weekend was, man, and everything
crazy.
Took everyone by surprise this past weekend. So it was. I imagine a lot of wallets were thinned out, and if not, some people just probably hit huge because they just threw flyers on certain teams.
Well, I didn't have enough confidence to just bet the lines that I wanted to, and I got parlay happy. And then, when you're relying on Jimmy G to throw 2 touchdowns in a win, what am I doing? I don't know.
Anyone who bet on Rodgers to throw a touchdown pass.
Oh my God.
That seemed like the ultimate winner, obviously.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
No, and even us, just our picks alone. I mean, it's kind of cool. You know what I mean? If you listen to the show, if you followed me, I called Cincy, you had the Titans. You called the Rams. I had, but on that one. And then with the Chiefs, we both were locked in on the Chiefs and the Packers, we just did not see that coming at all. We didn't see it.
So I think we each went 2-2 this week.
We did.
And last week we went a combined 11-1. So a little bit different in the divisional round, which surprised me because I would have thought the first round was the one where we would have got, but instead, no, it's here we are.
I think it's something about the fact that first round, there's the possibility in that first round of the NFL playoffs now, when you add the 7 seed, that you could get you compare it to March Madness. It's a possibility you could get a 15 beating a 2, but overall, it's pretty easy to predict the first round. It's a little top heavy. I mean, the teams at home, they're the reason they're at home for a reason. And then all of a sudden you run into, games like this where it's like this weekend where you just had such evenly matched teams and really, really good teams. And you saw it with the road teams going 3-1 this weekend. And the number 1 overall seeds, both of them getting absolutely embarrassed on their home fields on Saturday. It was wild. And we got a ton to talk about today.
That's the NFL, baby. That's what it is right there. That's why we love to watch it. And man, this weekend was everything we could have hoped and more. So to welcome us into our Football Lounge divisional round recap and AFC Championship preview and NFC Championship preview, of course.
Yeah.
I figured, this is the right thing to kind of spearhead us into this. So I'm going to play this here real quick. I think everyone is familiar. It's the classic NFL song right here. And that's what this weekend was, man. This is why it deserved to be here in the background for us as we dive into this episode. Just the best. I mean, we talked about this right before we got on here, Mark, and most people have, talked about this ad nauseum for the past 24 hours. The best weekend of football that we've seen probably in my lifetime. I can't think of a better grouping of games I've ever watched.
Someone would have to really present me some other options, but nothing comes off the top of my head. And I think it's mainly because we've had others where it's like, oh, that was one great, like an incredible game. Like I'm not going to sit here and say those were, individually one, like the Rams, or the Bucks or the Chiefs,
the Bengals,
and I'm not going to say the Chiefs Bills was the best football game I've ever seen. I mean, we all lived through 28-3. There's other things that come to mind, Super Bowls and in bigger moments or championship games, or even like the Monday night Rams and Chiefs game. But I will say collectively is 4 games in a row, back to back to back to back to back, to have them all come down to the wire. Such great talent on display. I mean, you're just blown away by how each game went, the swings in each game, and there were just so many moments where what you thought was the momentum was going to carry one team, and it just they shifted back and forth in every single game. And we'll go through each game here quickly, and then before giving a preview of the AFC and NFC Championship game. But I mean, man, it really was. It was so lovely to sit down and watch all that football this weekend.
Yeah, how about all those NFL boycotters, man? Clearly just tanking those rankings. Or ratings, I should say. Yeah, the NFL having clearly enjoying every moment of this. And look, we talked about it last week. The best teams, they had the right grouping of teams in this round, and it clearly showed through these final scores, through how all of these games played out. It was clearly the best talent on display, as you mentioned, and that's what makes the NFL great. That's what made this weekend so great. And I imagine we're going to get some really good games coming up here for the championship round as well. But you mentioned it. We're going to kind of go over each one of these games since there were so few, only 4 of them this past weekend, kind of touch on each one, our takeaways, what stood out, and then we'll obviously go into our preview for this next round prior to the Super Bowl. So we'll start with the Saturday games, as always. Bengals, Titans. Look, I mean, you and I both were talking about how the Titans came across as a fairly weak 1 seed, if not one of the weaker 1 seeds in recent memory. And, the game was close throughout. Not necessarily what you would expect the 1 seed to how you would expect the 1 seed to perform against a 4 seed Bengals who are making their first, divisional playoff.
They just won their first playoff game in like 31 years. I mean, there were no momentum, no history of success.
Correct. Yeah. Obviously bringing temporary momentum into it, but overall historical momentum not there. And I mean, it's not like the Bengals wiped the floor with them. Neither team seemed to want to win this game at times. Yeah. Some, crucial mistakes, but Evan McPherson, the rookie, comes through with the biggest kick of his career, of course, and nails the winner in the final seconds there. I believe, what was it, a 52-yarder, I want to say it was.
Big kick.
I'll have to double check that, but a huge kick, and the Bengals advance with a 19-16 victory for their first AFC championship in, I believe, 3 decades. So just an incredible start to the weekend where the underdog team, the road team, took advantage of a relatively stale Titans offense, Mark, particularly Ryan Tannehill. Neither quarterback played great in this game, but Tannehill certainly had his moments that were head scratchers and probably was the difference maker in this game.
4 field goals from Evan McPherson, the 52-yarder to win it as time expired. But there was a couple things that came through my head during this game. The first one being, I said it last week on the show. I said on my Saturday show, this to me was just a pick for Joe Burrow and feeling confident about it. I said on my Saturday show too, that I thought that there was 5 people in the NFL had the most pressure on them this weekend. And the only one of them that wasn't a quarterback, and I had that person ranked 3rd, was Mike Vrabel. And I made the argument that Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans organization, and to his credit, he really owned it after the game. What did he say? This loss is not on one person. As a lot of people are trying to pin it basically on your quarterback through 3 interceptions, 1 to start the game, 1 to start the second half, and a backbreaker as you're driving towards the very end of the game to try and tie it up or take the lead. And I said that Mike Vrabel had pressure on him because he was the one, he was the head coach at this point in time and their organization that basically said, we know by signing Tannehill to the deal we did, because Tannehill, remember, did not sign a Kirk Cousins deal. He did not sign a Dak Prescott deal. He was smart. The pressure's off Tannehill. No one's busting Tannehill today because he signed the deal appropriate for his talent. $25 million a year, to be the face of your franchise, to help get you there, but knowing that the limitations are going to be when we get to this point, we need everything going our way and a great game plan, a great defense, great running, all those things, but you can afford it because I'm not crippling our salary cap with a $40 million price tag. And so Tannehill relieved himself smartly of all that pressure, and the pressure fell on Vrabes. Now, Mike Vrabel is, I think, a very good head coach, and he said he'll be the head coach there for a long time. I don't know why Tennessee would think to get rid of Mike Vrabel. I don't blame him for the loss particularly. I will say, though, I thought Foreman was running the ball really well. Dante Foreman out of Texas. And he was one of those guys that I felt like, I know Henry's back, but ride the hot hand. I would have loved to have seen that a little bit more out of Tennessee. But, this is a moment for Joe Burrow and this Bengals team that, again, they just rose to the occasion and the specialness of this young quarterback. And I'll reiterate this over the next couple games as we talk about, especially in the other AFC matchup between the young quarterbacks, Mahomes and Allen. I am done saying, oh man, for the next 10 years, get ready for this. I'm done with that saying, because I was so reminded during the Bengals game of 5 years ago saying, oh man, I can't wait. We get 10 more years of Andrew Luck and Patrick Mahomes. And when you watch the beating that kid takes and the beating that Josh Allen takes, as well, you just can't say it anymore. These organizations, as talented as Burrow is and as gutsy as he is, and he single-handedly, gutsy performance in this 9 sacks. And it was 9 sacks, but it really was like he got hit 12, 14, 15 times. The hits he was taking on the runs and everything he had to do. It is now officially time for the Bengals to go all in on their offensive line and reworking some of their playbook in the offseason next year, whenever the offseason ends, whether it's a Super Bowl victory, AFC championship, whatever it is, they need to do it, because you cringe for him. And especially after the knee injury, but it just goes to show he's special, really, really special. And it was the beginning of a weekend where now, as we walk away in total, this game was kind of the beginning of just basically saying there's the haves and the have-nots. The AFC is run right now by the Power 5 young quarterbacks, and the NFC is run by the veteran quarterbacks. And it's a fascinating kind of dichotomy that we have in the NFC and AFC. It started with that really the nail-biting victory and the big kick and the confidence of that kid McPherson to hit that 52-yarder with the game on the line.
Yeah, he supposedly told Joe Burrow as you trotted out of the field, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship. You got to love that. That's awesome.
Especially with Joe Burrow. I mean, if that's the culture they're building in this locker room, and I'm okay. If you live by that, then die by it as well.
Sure.
I think since he's okay with that as well, because again, they're just playing with such house money. The Titans felt tight. The Titans felt forced, just as I predicted. It was the one game of this weekend that I predicted, and it went exactly how I thought it would. Everything else was a disaster for my predictions, but it was the one that I felt, if you go back and listen to the show, it just felt, everything fell into place, and we'll see. I'll give him a chance next week, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And, his poise has stood out throughout his young career already. That's why they're, giving him Joe Namath's nickname of Joe Cool. Because that is how he carries himself, Joe Burrow. 13 quarterback hits credited to the Tennessee Titans in this one.
Jeez.
That's a lot of times, man. And 9 sacks. I believe that was a playoff record, was it not? In a single game. And for them to not win in that type of performance just kind of goes to show what kind of game this was really. And clearly the Bengals were keying in on stopping Derrick Henry. That was their goal. And they succeeded well. There were times over the top. A.J. Brown, had these big play moments. So and, the thing that I guess surprised me the most. So Derrick Henry was 20 carries, 62 yards. Obviously nothing special there. Foreman, as you mentioned, only the 4 carries and had 66 yards on those 4 carries. And
the big explosive run, but he just seemed faster and more in the game flow for what Tennessee needed in that moment.
And that is the concern when a guy, has missed time. You just never know how they're going to be able to adapt to the speed and just get back into the flow of things. And what surprised me the most, Mark, was that it did seem like Tannehill was trying a little bit too much at a lot of times. He's a guy that you wouldn't consider him like, among the Kyler Murrays and Lamar Jacksons, but he's certainly a mobile guy and
Yeah.
he can rip off good 20, 30-yard runs, no problem. He didn't take those opportunities this game. There were quite a few moments, particularly in that final interception, that there were lanes for him to get an easy 10 yards, at least a first down, and instead try to force it and make something bigger happen. I think those are some of the detrimental aspects to the Titans in this one. But it wasn't just on him, of course. It was a
Yeah.
full team effort. And the Bengals just, got the best of it. And for a kicker to make, you can't downplay him not just making the winning field goal, but he made a 54-yarder earlier.
Yep.
He made some huge kicks in this game, and that ended up being the difference maker. So credit to him. This is a team that's basically, as you said, risen to the occasion all year long. They deserve to be here. They earned it. And it's impressive. I mean, like you said, the AFC North and the AFC in general is going to be on notice, man, because it's going to be a wild ride. Even if a couple guys get injured, a la Andrew Luck or something, there's still plenty to go around. We're going to have some great quarterback play to watch for quite some time.
I will say this, this game was such a microcosm, as I've said, for everything to lead to. You make the great point. Special teams played such a big part of Cincy's win. And as we go into the next games
and all the games.
Yeah. We'll talk more about how it's so, it's easy to laugh off, but it's just so true. When you're down to the final 2 games in each division, in these final 8 teams, you need to play complete games. You need everyone at their best. And Ryan Tannehill had an off game, and a Titans team at home 1 seed, as good as their defense is, as soon as your team just is a little bit off and your quarterback just is not hitting on all cylinders, he's not special enough, as you saw Burrow and Mahomes and Allen, to just kind of overcome being off. And it's tough, but so many franchises have to build the way Tennessee builds because there's very few Mahomes, Allens, those type of players. I will say this, my last thing, I want to pose this question just because we're talking about Tennessee now, and we won't talk about them again the rest of the show. At this point in time, the other thing I left that game feeling, and especially then by the end of Saturday night, I felt this way so much. The Tennessee Titans should be sneaky and play under the radar. Don't let it leak. But they should go all in on trying to trade for Aaron Rodgers. Imagine if they made some sort of package or put that together to get Aaron to Tennessee. Green Bay might consider it. He's not in the AFC. There's not like a big market. You're not sending him necessarily to an LA or a New York somewhere. You're sending to an AFC team that you're not most likely not going to have to battle. He's going to get AJ Brown. He's going to get Derrick Henry. Who knows what they do with Julio Jones? You're going to have to give up a ton of picks, but this Titans team is ready made to win right now. I think there's an underlying feeling. If you're Aaron Rodgers, to me, it makes more sense than going to the AFC West or the AFC North and battling all those quarterbacks. I just want to say, I think sneaky, if I was the Tennessee Titans, I would leave this game, the ownership, kick the tires on, make the calls, be secret about it. Don't want it to leak. What would the price be? What's the asking price for Russell Wilson, for Aaron Rodgers? Because this Titans team, if they had special at quarterback, that all bets are off then the AFC. I think they win that game if they have someone who's in the level that we consider special at the quarterback position. I think they win that game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. They obviously could use an elevated player at that position. Question is, can they even beat out someone in their own division for Aaron Rodgers, which might be the Colts? I mean, the Colts might be in play. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm definitely going to the Colts over the Tennessee Titans, primarily because, one, they play in the Dome. They also have an elite running back. And it's pretty comparable, except their defense is elite. But it would be a fairly comparable decision for him to make, no question.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I didn't. The Colts weren't on the top of my head, but those are going to be suitors again. Denver's already out there, is kind of known. Pittsburgh's already been talked about in the national media. They should be all in. New Orleans should be all in. But if you're one of those two teams, sneakies, try to stay under the radar, see what the asking price is for Russell Wilson and for Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves off-season storylines, but it was just on my head. I thought I want to get your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers possibly in Tennessee.
I think it'd be cool. I just you kind of inspired me to go check out Over the Cap. Unfortunately, the Tennessee Titans only have $3 million under the
Okay,
cap
they'd have to
going
make
into
the
next
most.
year. But I don't know who they're due to lose potentially, so that could factor in, of course.
Well, the Packers are way over the cap.
They are very over the cap. For them to afford both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams next season, highly unlikely. Let's get to that game though. The Green Bay Packers hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Once again, Aaron Rodgers against San Fran in the playoffs. 0 for 3 coming into this game. We had the storylines, of course, of San Fran passing on him in the 2005 NFL draft. Of course, he took that personally, being from California, growing up a San Francisco fan, having the record he did. I mean, there were so many storylines to come out of this with Aaron Rodgers. It's his revenge tour. It's the last dance with Devontae Adams. All of these things. And a game that maybe a lot of us predicted would have been at least a little bit higher scoring turned out to be the lowest scoring close game and really sloppy game all around from both teams. Neither team really earned the victory. It turned out to just be that San Francisco was able to capitalize when it mattered most. And late in this game, they give Robbie Gould a chance, and he seals them the victory with a winning field goal in the final seconds to give them a 13-10 win going into the NFC Championship game. 10 points by Green Bay in this one, Mark. Aaron Rodgers, 20 of 29, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, uninspiring play from the Packers offense as a whole. And, as I'm sure you'll talk about here with kind of your thoughts, the special teams, as we mentioned, plays a huge factor in this entire weekend. It reared its ugly head for Green Bay. The blocked punt that went for a touchdown, that was the play of the game, really. They had San Fran on their heels, and that's the only touchdown San Fran was able to muster. And that turned out to be the big difference maker in this one. What were your thoughts on Green Bay, the 1 seed, getting rolled at home in the divisional round?
Well, my thoughts were, it was just joyous. It was it was so much fun to watch. I'll try to keep emotion out of it. I think, to me, the biggest thing was, and I tweeted it right after the game, I was like, looking at that score, and I just kept saying to myself, the Packers scored 10 points at home. Yeah. I mean, literally 10 points at home. And if you look at the drive charts, Aaron Rodgers, this is the first half drive charts for the Packers. 10 plays, 69 yards, touchdowns, took them 5 minutes. They're up 7-0, right? Then you have 5 plays, 33 yards in the fumble. So they fumble it. San Francisco does nothing with it. 3 plays, 0 yards, and they punt. They only have the ball. Aaron gets the ball right back. You're thinking, okay, here they go. Get momentum going. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. Niners punt. Packers get it back. 3 plays, -4 yards, punt. Niners punt. Green Bay, 6 plays, 16 yards, punt. Niners, 11 plays. Then it's that interception. Packers then get that 6 plays, 75 yards. But again, that was on the chunk play, end the half. Niners kind of in prevent. They don't even get any points to the end the half. You go, okay, 7-7, regroup. The Packers come out, 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 14 plays, 57 yards, the field goal, 9 minutes. Ate up a ton of clock. That shortened the second half dramatically. 9-minute drive, and majority
so it's 10-3
of
at that point.
57 yards of that was on 39 of the 57 or 30. Sorry, I want to make sure my numbers are right. Yeah, 39 of the 57 yards were on that Aaron Jones run up the middle out of shotgun. So just a big chunk play from Aaron Jones. And then they had the block punt touchdown after the Niners drive it down and get they turn it over on downs. And then they get the punt. And then the field goal, Niners win the game. I mean, you can't.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Ugly.
And that is on the quarterback. I mean, any other game, any other team, you have to be critical of the quarterback. I think about if this was the NBA, that's like LeBron James in Game 7, like with Miami against the Mavs, and he just crumbled. Like, where are you? You're the MVP. Yeah. You're the best player in the league. You all offseason long were teasing us with the Last Dance, comparing yourself to Michael Jordan. You had an incredible regular season. You deservedly will win the MVP because you were aggressive. You were fantastic. You were pouring points on people. And you turtled. You absolutely turtled at home against the Niners. And it's bad. It's embarrassing. And if I'm Green Bay this morning, do you say to yourself, listen, this is just exhausting. What are we doing? What are we doing? Aaron Rodgers is 5-4 at home at Lambeau or in his career, and favored in almost every one of those games. I think I heard, are all but one. That's just bad. That's just bad. It's the Green Bay Packers are a proud franchise. And one of the parts that's proud about that franchise is Lambeau Field and playing in the frozen tundra. And Aaron Rodgers has been bad the last decade at home in the playoffs, flat out bad. And that was a cherry on the top of bad performances from Aaron Rodgers. And then as a coaching staff, listen, Matt LaFleur, you got to fire whoever it is, your buddy that you hired to be the special teams coordinator. I don't even know who it is. You got to fire him just to satiate your fan base. Even if he deserves to keep his job, you got to fire him because they were bad all season. I think you got to get rid of Mason Crosby. I think special teams for the Packers, you have to just completely revamp. The offseason for Green Bay is going to be fascinating, so I don't want to spend more time on that. But I will say for the Niners, I don't know what it is. I've never seen a team be able to win games like this with their quarterback. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. And everything worked out perfectly for them because they play bad against everyone, but yet they always play really good against Sean McVay and the Rams in LA. And that's where they're headed. And if you're a Niners fan this morning and this weekend, you've got to be on cloud nine. Shout out Matt Spina. You've got to be on cloud nine. This is perfect. Everything fell into place. You got to go and beat up on your 90s rival in the Cowboys. You get to go to Lambeau and beat up on a Packers team that, since they drafted Aaron Rodgers, is 0-4. The Packers are 0-4 against San Francisco in the playoffs since they drafted him. And now you get to go to LA where you own Sean McVay. I mean, things are working out. I don't see them beating anyone in the AFC, but the Niners sure as hell can make a Super Bowl because they made their own luck. They were in overtime in week 18 against the Rams. The season could have been over, and look where they are now. That's just momentum is a crazy thing. Things work out, and Aaron Rodgers turtling has the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game.
And the 49ers, did this with, 83 total yards from Deebo Samuel and, 4 catches for 63 yards from George Kittle. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's phenomenal. Deebo's incredible. What he's been able to do. University of South Carolina alum as well. So we know him well out here. He's an upstate native. The thing that stood out to me on top of all of that, Mark, is that this is obviously the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, dynamic offense. And you got 2 players that caught significant passes in this game.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones was your leading receiver, 9 catches, 129 yards. It was all dump downs, except for that one, 55-yarder to Aaron Jones on the wheel. Devontae peppered with targets, 9 for 90. And then Alan Lazard and Mercedes Lewis combined for 2 catches after that. I mean, this is what we've seen from Aaron Rodgers, and this is what, people want to talk about how they need, these extra weapons or they need this and they need that. Well, I'm going to say this right now, Alan Lazard is a very capable number 2 wide receiver, in my opinion, in this league. He's a big guy.
Great point.
Gets open.
Agreed.
And he never gets the targets. I mean, Aaron zones in on his guy, and then that's what he wants to do. That's it. And I feel like it came back to bite them in this one. Randall Cobb was your dude, and what? I mean, I didn't even see him on the field. Now, maybe he was a little bit banged up still, and they didn't want to completely deploy him. But just, the usage here is inexcusable. And for a guy that's billed as being, the Hall of Fame quarterback and someone who takes pride in being able to, be dynamic with his offense, to only really have 2 targets for the entire game, just to me seems like a failing, because you cannot tell me that Mercedes Lewis, Lazard, DeGuara. Some of these other guys weren't open
St.
at
Brown.
times. DeGuara was open on one play where he took Aaron Rodgers took a sack and ended a drive, and DeGuara was wide open in the flat, but he was looking for Devontae. And there were a couple other moments on the pick when he tried to pepper it to Devontae, Allen Lazard wide open on the crosser. It's things like that you expect Aaron Rodgers to key in on. Those were the big mistakes. And really, I mean, it's the 49ers did not play well. They didn't play well in this game. Jimmy G didn't play well in this game, but they got it done from those special teams moments. That's why, as you said, you have to be buttoned up everywhere, because all it takes is one facet of the game in a close one like this to completely turn it on its head.
And it's not like the game we had just seen earlier, where it's not like the Niners had 9 sacks. I mean, like they got after Aaron. They played really well defensively, but you're right. Aaron let drives end. He was bad. He was absolutely bad. And I'm sorry, but we did our quarterback rankings at the end of last season, and we both had Aaron Rodgers in the top 10. I can't remember where you had him exactly. I think I had him around 7.
You're talking about the all-time list, right?
Yes, this hurts his legacy. I'm sorry. This will always come back. This is LeBron James in the finals with the Heat against the Mavericks. This hurts your legacy. Your record at home, you're the 1 seed. You absolutely turtled, and you make a great point about Lazard. It's not like he's a first-year wide receiver Green Bay. He's been there since 2018.
Yeah.
He's been, and this was his best season. I'm looking up his stats now. He had 8 touchdown catches this year. I mean, it's not like, but again, you're absolutely right. Aaron Rodgers does not create relationships with enough of his players. I'm sorry, but this is and there's going to be Twitter people still do it. Blake Smith's one of them. We get into it on Twitter, a good buddy of ours, but he'll say, no, Aaron Rodgers is better QB than Peyton Manning. I'll put him ahead of Peyton Manning. And I'm sorry. I think that is so blind. That is just purely looking at arm talent, and you cannot do that. There is a human element to any job. You think about your relationship with your boss, your coworkers. There's a human element to doing your job really well.
Absolutely.
And being really great at your job, whether you're a manager, whether you're, anything. There is a human element to playing quarterback, of being a human being and being a teammate.
And it's the ultimate team sport.
And I'm sorry, but Aaron Rodgers, I'm not just trying to sit here and be he's a bad guy. You'll be like, Mark, you're a Bears fan, you're bitter. It was a great weekend for me. You don't have to remind me that it's sad as a Bears fan. My best weekends are watching the Packers lose. I get it. It's pathetic. The Bears suck. But there is more to this. From a football analyst perspective, Aaron Rodgers is maybe a top 3 talent of all time. But right now, and his career is an arc. I mean, obviously right now he's not nearly as talented as Allen or Mahomes. I mean, what you saw from those guys, but especially in big moments when the lights are bright. But this hurts his legacy. I stand by the fact that this is a knock on Aaron Rodgers' legacy. At least Brett Favre at the end of his career, when shit was hitting the fan, he was going to take a shot and throw some picks and be like, fuck it. Yep. You know what I mean? Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that. He's just kind of like, and Devontae's not open, and now I'm going to sulk. Like that, It's just bad. It's just bad. And part of me hopes he goes somewhere next year and wins the Super Bowl like Brady. You know what I mean? And just shows that, like, okay, maybe he just when he's happy and he's where maybe he wants to be to change scenery, because he's so bleeping talented. It's maddening. It's maddening. It's not like Kirk Cousins where you're like, dude's got limitations. Of course he's throwing a pick. It's Kirk Cousins. He is so talented that you see something like this. It is maddening. That was a Bears type of offensive performance. It was pathetic. And that's Aaron Rodgers' fault.
The same number of NFC championships as Rex Grossman.
Let's go.
Let that sink in, baby. He got the Super Bowl title, but yeah, I mean, one NFC championship, man, in a division that he's dominated. It's inexcusable. I mean, like he's had to go up against world beaters. It's not like the NFC West right now, where it's like pick the team and they could be in the Super Bowl. Exactly. I mean, you Peyton. There was a similar knock on him for a long time because it was like, you're with the Colts, dude, like get there more, but he had to go through Tom Brady half the time. And that's like, okay, he had to go the greatest of all time. We're talking about, no offense to Jimmy G, but Aaron, you couldn't get past Jimmy G. Like, come on, man. Like this, you have to get there. And they have good defenses, but the 49ers are not the 85 Bears. You know, they're not the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah.
So there's no more excuses, man. Yeah, and like you said, like, he's got to take some blame for this. But either way, 49ers advance, and they will take on the LA Rams in a Shanahan versus McVay showdown.
Part 3.
As at part 3, the Rams beat the Buccaneers 30-27 in another wild game that goes down to the last minute. Of course, the Bucs end up getting a huge touchdown to Mike Evans, wide open. I don't know what these defenses were doing. I get Jalen Ramsey's good. I don't understand why you don't give safety help on Mike Evans. He's the only weapon that you really have to worry a lot about outside of Gronk. But he gets the huge touchdown. They, tie the game. And then Matthew Stafford makes just a great throw, great decision right down the middle of the field to the, probably is going to end up being second in MVP votes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp on a huge play that set them up for a field goal, and they get the game winner 30-27 of the Bucs. I mean, ultimately, Mark, Tom Brady threw 54 times this game. Leonard Fournette played well. They were just, last year they were super healthy, right? And we always talked the whole time, like, this team has avoided injuries all year, and they were clearly the best team, and they won the Super Bowl. A couple of years ago, it was the same case for Kansas City, but then, last year Kansas City got hurt. Kansas City's healthy now. The Bucs are not, and that kind of seemed to rear its ugly head a little bit in this one, and just not enough to overcome. And the Rams, really, those offensive line issues for the Bucs was the biggest contributor, I think, to this, because the Rams' defensive front was just after Tom all day.
I mean, I think I tweeted out middle of the second quarter, if the Bucs offensive line is this bad without Tristan Wirfs, he deserves to be the MVP of the NFL. Like, I mean, that's how.
I mean, he's so good, but
and he is fantastic. But you could tell this was a team that, again, you got to remember the Bucs in perspective as a whole. They were trying to do something we've literally never seen done before. They had just come off of doing something we'd never seen done, winning a Super Bowl in their home field. And then they literally brought every single person back. And from day one, that was the thing that blew my mind when they said it during the broadcast. That was the first time the whole team had played with each other again, those starters, since the Super Bowl, because there was injuries that all year. They were never healthy all year, but they were just better enough in a bad division to win enough games. And they had Tom Brady, and they caught up with them against their Achilles heel. I mean, they can't be upset because they won the Super Bowl last year because the Chiefs' offensive line fell apart health-wise, and their defensive line is incredible. And what happened to them this year in the playoffs? Their offensive line fell apart health-wise, and the Rams' defensive line is incredible. So they lost at their own game. I hate and love that this game ended the way it did, and let me explain that. I hate that it got close and it took almost that Matt Stafford and the Rams almost lost, because they dominated and they were the better team. They deserved to win because of the way they played the game. But I like that it happened this way for them a little bit, because if they had just blown out the Bucs, then that was like letdown city for them, no matter who they were playing, whether it's Green Bay or San Francisco the next week. Like, winning a close game like this and having Matt Stafford have those two throws and do what he did, I mean, you've got to feel so good about yourselves. That is why you made the picks, the trade. This is why, because when everything was crumbling around the Rams, and they were crumbling, snaps, multiple fumbles. The first time in NFL history, a team lost 4 fumbles in a game, in a playoff game, and gave up a 20-point lead and still won. Wow. I mean, so what they were, I mean, it fell apart, and it didn't fall apart because it fell apart just fluky. I mean, who would have guessed the 3 fumbles and the stamp like that? I mean, things were melting down around them. And credit to Sean McVay, and massive, massive credit to Cooper Kupp for bailing himself out after the bad fumble, and Matt Stafford for the throws. And my Rams
to have the confidence to make that throw was big time.
Off his back foot, single high safety, and moved. Listen, my confidence with the Rams right now is an all-time high. I feel great about the Rams because of the way the game then ended for them. I hated it, but then I perspective-wise, I think it really bodes well for them going to next weekend. I will quickly say this about the Bucs. We'll talk about the Rams more in the preview here. I'll say this about the Bucs. Tom Brady is doing the right thing about being coy about whether he's coming back or not. Tom Brady coming back or not depends on, he could have his two coordinators have head coaching jobs in the next week. And if you're Tom Brady and you have two head coach, you've lost two coordinators. You have a 71-year-old Bruce Arians. He'll be 71 next season. You have a lot of, an old offensive line of parts, even though you have an elite tackle with Wirfs. You have a lot of guys who signed one-year deals to come on back. So much of it for Brady's going to be looking about what's the coaching staff like, and then where do we feel pieces-wise in his own body. Remember, he hid the knee injury and had a big knee surgery this time last year. I think Brady knows he could come back, but I do think maybe Brady knows that, listen, there's winning a Super Bowl and walking off. He let that go. He's not going to get that. Tom Brady's Super Bowl days most likely are done. And that's just because it's hard to bleep and win Super Bowls. And now you look at the talent of the AFC, the young quarterbacks, and the NFC quarterback talent, depending on where Rodgers ends up or what happens with Russell Wilson and, obviously Matt Stafford, it's tough. And I hope Tom retires now, because I heard this on part of my take this morning. I didn't think of this, but it's really funny to think about. If Tom Brady retires this year, and poor Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, right.
You can't vote for Ben Roethlisberger to be in the same class as Tom Brady. I mean, I don't know how you do that. I mean, a lot of people.
You could put two quarterbacks at a first ballot, right?
People could compare it. I think people compare it a little bit, maybe to then you say like Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher, but I think Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher's careers are closer than Brady and Roethlisberger. No fault to Roethlisberger that he's going. Roethlisberger's. It's just a funny thing they brought up, and it's funny to think about. I would like to see Tom give it another run, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on the roster in the next couple of weeks. And Tampa's not going to force him to make a decision. And if you're Tampa, you have options at quarterback. I mean, Jimmy G is going to be available. Maybe you go after a Derek Carr. Maybe you just go and you get aggressive in the draft. I don't think Tampa knew what they got when they signed up for the Tom Brady, however long it was going to last. They got a Super Bowl out of it. If you need to go into rebuild, you go to rebuild. I think Arians would walk away too then. I think if it falls apart, it falls apart really quickly. But it's going to be a fascinating, besides the Rodgers drama, the Tampa Bay offseason, they could go from legitimate Super Bowl favorites to instant rebuild very, very quickly. And that'll be fascinating for the rest of the league, because there's a lot of good pieces in Tampa that they would sell off for draft picks and clearing cap, that a lot of teams would love to have some of those pieces.
No question. And an interesting thing about it too, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, is I think what Tom has done for that franchise, not just getting them the Super Bowl last year, but I truly think even if this becomes kind of a blow up deal, he leaves, Arians leaves, the coaching staff, I think what he's instilled in them is going to reverberate for years to come, because there's going to be a few of these players that stick around. I think his presence, his leadership is at least like, they're not going to end up being the same Bucs of old. I don't think they're going to instantly revert back to what they were. But players still matter. And so when you get rid of, if you lose a bunch of players, there are certainly, I agree with you, going to be in a rebuild mode. But I think at least the culture there will stick around for a little bit longer, as long as some of these players on this current team and the team from last year are on the team as well.
You make a great point, but I also think, to add on to that, besides whatever culture remains, I think Tampa has shown, hey, we're an organization that has seen what the Miami Heat do, and they're like, we'll be Florida, we'll be the NFL's version of that. Come all free agents. We'll sign up for just short windows of success.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of guys, once, it's easier to say, hey, screw it, I'll go to Tampa. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm a quarterback, I'm a player, because if they're trying to do it, like, it opens up that door for players just, to feel the freedom to be like, oh, I'm not going to be judged as much. If you want to just kind of ring chase in the NFL, and if Tampa can build that culture as well, I think it makes sense for them to do it. I mean, Tampa, their history is so weird as an organization. Then why not just say to themselves, let's be the place that will just kind of go for short windows. I mean, unless you can find yourself the young franchise quarterback, which they may try to do, but otherwise, hey, every couple of years rebuild and just go all in. It's not a bad plan, especially in the NFC South right now.
It works.
Up in the air.
It can work, absolutely. And just one last point on that: if Tom does decide to hang it up, it would be interesting because you could draw parallels. His final game was against the Rams, his first Super Bowl win against the Rams. You could talk about Big Ben, his first game in the NFL was against the Ravens, and his final regular season game against the Ravens. They both retire the same year. It'd be pretty interesting parallels to draw there. All right, let's get into the final game, Mark, the best one of them all. Couldn't have ended on a better note. An overtime victory for the Chiefs over the Bills, 42-36, in a wild sequence of events that basically all came down to the cliff notes of this game are Mahomes is awesome, and Gabriel Davis somehow had 4 touchdowns and 200 yards. Josh Allen is awesome, and the final sequences of Josh Allen driving this team, willing them to victory with 13 seconds left on the clock to take a 4-point lead, I believe it was, or a 3-point lead at the time, right? No. Yes. Was it a 3-point lead at the time when they
went down by 4, and then the Bills scored the touchdown late with 13 seconds remaining. Then they're up by 3, so the field goal to tie it. Yeah.
Yep. So they go up by 3, the field goal to tie it, and then that field goal was hit by the Kansas City Chiefs on a 44-yard drive that lasted 12 seconds, or even less, actually. So because the first play to Tyreek Hill went for a good 20 yards, second play to Travis Kelce, both wide open. I think we both have our thoughts on how this transpired. The final sequence there to get them into field goal range and even tie the game. And then, of course, a touchdown in overtime on the first drive of the first possession for Kansas City to get the win. This game was wild. It was crazy. It played out in a sense in the way we thought it would, with it just a shootout going to Kansas City late. But I don't think we saw it panning out in terms of the dramatics that happened in the final, really the final 2 minutes of this game because of the constant drives that both these teams had.
Yeah, I think there's lessons to be learned from this game, a lot of them. And one of them being NFL coaches need to all take a look at that final 2 minutes and start saying to yourself, why does the football game change so much? Like, why do we panic and make bad decisions on defensive coordinators? Like Leslie Frazier, in my opinion, you cannot hire him after what.
I know, yeah.
You cannot. How am I supposed to have the confidence to, in my organization, say, this guy is going to make all the great decisions when you did what you did defensively for the Bills in those last and it's more than, the Chiefs are just really good. The Chiefs are really good. I want to go back to the beginning of this game and kind of build my way into it, because it really was such a great game from start to finish. The first half was so much about these teams kind of feeling each other out. And you could tell they both had that sense of, we want to hit big plays, but we want to also stay within striking distance. Like, they both just throw after throw and drive after drive. You could just feel this sense of just, body blows to each other. If you compare it to boxing, they both know they can hit an uppercut when they want to, if they need to, but they just were scared to do it yet because they fear their opponent so much, respect their opponent so much. It really was like Tyson Holyfield type of thing. And what I love so much about this game too is that you see the special from each quarterback and the way these teams designed their game plans around how each quarterback is special. They're both mobile, but in different ways. They both have giant arms, but in different ways. They both can throw at unique angles, but in different ways. And it's fascinating to watch it just drive on display. It's like watching Michael, the better comparison, it's like watching Jordan and like LeBron in their primes if they were going one-on-one against each other, where you're like, good God, they're each like a freak, but they're just different. I mean, Josh Allen is like Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Where it's the same thing for Patrick Mahomes though, where he's like I don't like Kyrie Irving's bad, but that's the way he plays it. He's an artist.
He has the flash. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, he brings the spark to the game, he's the Jordan in this. I think he's the Jordan.
Well, he's like
example.
Yeah, it's like Kobe though, where he's like just more almost artistic than Jordan, even at times. Where it's hard. I know these are bad comparisons. I'm just
Well, but Jordan treated the game like jazz. Like it was
a little, yes.
It like, and so that's like the style. He had style. He had
Jordan
swag
had
to
style.
his game.
You're absolutely right.
Where LeBron is power. Like he's just a huge guy. And that's Josh Allen is just bigger, larger than life almost.
It is. It's fascinating to watch, and it's different than even Cam Newton. I mean, because Cam Newton was giant and larger than life. Ben Roethlisberger giant and larger than life, but
yeah.
But Allen's. I heard a stat that Josh Allen's like efficiency running the ball was like the third best season ever from a quarterback, up there with like the Michael Vick year when he was on the Madden cover. I mean, like if you have to take into totality, and again, that's why I go back to my earlier point. I don't want to sit here and say we're going to get this for 10 years because we're just not. These two quarterbacks, what we're seeing right now, there's a 3 or 4 year window where they can play like this, but eventually their bodies are going to be physically different. Aaron Rodgers is not as mobile as Aaron Rodgers was 5 years ago when he was like, you know what I mean? Like your body will change. Josh Allen, these hits will accumulate. Patrick Mahomes will not be able to be vertical flying and sidearm with, like he just won't in 2030, like in 8 years from now. He'll be really good still. He'll be probably still the best quarterback in the league, but he'll have to play differently. Like so we're seeing them at their primes, at their peak, when the artistry and the physicality is something that is just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And
it's hard to describe, really.
It is hard to describe. And
poetry
and
in motion.
We almost, if you look at the AFC playoffs this year, we were gypped. This could have been the perfect ever AFC playoffs, but we were gypped out of three things. Andrew Luck's health, and if he was still the quarterback of the Colts, and that's the biggest what if. So we were gypped out of two things. We were gypped out of the Chargers making the playoffs to get Justin Herbert into the tournament as well, over the Steelers, and we were gypped out of Lamar Jackson having a healthy year and being there as well. Because then you would have had the core 4-5 young guys in the AFC going just in the tournament, best man win. You would have had Lamar, Herbert, Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes, best man win. And that hopefully over the next 3 seasons we get that at least one time. You know what I mean? Because that's what the AFC is all about right now. And the best man is Patrick Mahomes. The best team won. The better quarterback overall, just unique gifts in what he does. They won, and a lot of it is the better team won because the Chiefs lost Tyrann Mathieu in the first play of the game. And they still held on to win, where the Bills just kept making boneheaded defensive decisions after boneheaded defensive decisions. A lot of that goes on Leslie Frazier, and teams should honestly not hire him for those reasons. Whereas Brian Daboll should be hired for all of the reasons. I don't want to get into that. You know, if you follow me on Twitter, hire Brian Daboll, the Bears. Please, God, hire Brian Daboll. And anyone who sits there and goes, it's Josh Allen, it's not Brian Daboll, I combat you the fact that Brian Daboll was been with him since day one. And yes, it's still Josh Allen. It's still Josh Allen. But he took a raw bull in a china shop and helped guide him to this point. In some way, shape, or form, he did. Or at least saw what it took to get a bull in a china shop to what we see today.
Yeah, I mean, that's like saying it's Mahomes, not Reed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
there's got to be some symbioticness to it both. They helped each other. So anyways, I'll get off that horse. I will say this, because I don't want to talk about the Chiefs a ton yet, because we'll talk about them. For the Bills, this is life. I mean, you are now the Indianapolis Colts. You are now the Indianapolis Colts from 2001 to 2012. And good luck. Hopefully you can sneak one in there and you'll get one in Buffalo, and you can beat Kansas City like Peyton got one in Indy, and then he went on to beat the Bears in the Super Bowl. You know, this is life. You are now, the problem is Peyton Manning didn't have they had Big Ben, and there was, and the Steelers got their shots in there. Maybe that's going to be Joe Burrow with Cincinnati, but there's a lot of young talent. So if you're Buffalo, you're not the only one vying to beat Indianapolis over the next 10 years. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
If Kansas City's the Patriots, there's a lot of people who want to beat Indianapolis and get their one and have their shot at Mahomes. The Bengals are that, the Ravens are that, the Chargers are absolutely that. So you got a lot of suitors for that job. And if you're Buffalo, you're going to be fending them off. But not luckily for Buffalo, they right now have the second best quarterback in the NFL, and they have a team that that supports him, builds around him, a city that goes all in around him that he loves. He'll die and he'll battle with that city for hopefully years to come. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it just goes to show the specialness that is Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of people will argue, well, wait a minute. The only reason 13 seconds is too much time for Patrick Mahomes because they had 2 timeouts. Andy Reid, credit to him, as a guy who we've criticized over his career. The only thing you criticize Andy Reid on is bad time management. He had his timeouts.
Yep.
He had his timeouts.
That was a big factor. No question. The 2 quarterbacks, to your point, Josh Allen, 27 of 37, 329 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, 33 of 44, 378, and 3 touchdowns, no picks. Incredible. And both quarterbacks over 60 yards rushing in this one as well. Just an unbelievable display of just pure talent. I will say this. There are a couple major issues I had. First off, I was saying this the second that Mahomes and company had 13 seconds. Kick the ball short.
Yes,
make them return it. Make them return it and take 3 seconds off. That 3 seconds is paramount to what you're going to do. The second big thing, how are you not jamming those receivers at the line? You gave Tyreek Hill, you let them get the screenplay on that first play. That's atrocious. You don't even jam him. You don't force them to get the separation. Yeah. Take an extra 2 seconds because of that. And then the same with Kelsey to just give them that free window inside. They were playing the sidelines as if they were worried about them getting out of bounds.
And they were playing.
It doesn't matter if they get out of bounds.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They had timeouts. That doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It was bad planning all around. And this, Mark, is probably the most devastating loss in Buffalo Bills history, right next to the Scott Norwood missed kick. I mean, it's
I agree.
And then it's this, in my opinion, because the other 3 Super Bowl losses, really tough, devastating. 2 of them were absolute blowouts. So, I mean, the way this one ended, that's tough. But they'll be around, as you said, and they're not necessarily going anywhere. So, phenomenal game to end this thing, and we set up a fantastic championship round as well.
Do you want to quickly talk about the overtime? That's what everyone wants to talk about. I don't know if you have strong thoughts on it. I do. If you've been following me on Twitter, I have strong thoughts on it. Do you want to take a second now to do that, or where are we at? What do you feel?
I mean, we can touch on it. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, to be honest. I don't think it's that big of an issue. To me, it's not that big of a deal. To me, there's really probably never going to be an all-around fair way, quote unquote, to make that set up, because either way, there's going to be questions about something, in my view. And then you're like, if you want to just do possession for possession, you're once again now getting yourself into we're playing 17 game seasons.
Yeah.
We're playing multiple games, and now these guys are going to have to play 1-2 quarters of extra football potentially. To me, it's like everyone who's saying that it was decided on the coin toss, to me, like, first off, I don't have to prove my case. That is demonstrably false. They had to earn it. It has to be earned. It's not just the coin toss. Okay, game over. It's not. Even if there's a 5% chance of you being the kicking team winning, there's still that 5%. Be that 5%. It's up to you to be that 5%. But the thing is, Mark, in the playoffs, since this whole thing has been since the changes have been made, 10 out of 11 playoff teams in overtime who have received the kick have won. But in general, across all of the NFL for overtime, it's about 54% of the teams that receive win. So to act like it's the biggest disparity, it's not true. Now, maybe in the playoffs, I get it. The best teams, best offenses, the odds of them going down scoring a touchdown are much better. But hey, man, that's why they say defense wins championships. And look, if you're Leslie Frazier and company, you just got owned in 13 seconds. Your job is to come back now and make a statement, and at the very least, hold them to a field goal. Like, that's your job. So I don't have sympathy, I guess, is what
you know what? Listen, I mean this when I say it. I don't love the overtime, but I just don't see the perfect solution out there. I haven't heard it yet. College overtime in the NFL, the people complain about that. I think it's a valid point. It's not real football. It's just scoring. And again, if you do the college overtime, you do something different and say Patrick Mahomes on the 7th attempt, and now all of a sudden it's 65-65 because they keep scoring, he tears his ACL, but the Chiefs end up winning. And it's like, oh, okay, well, then their season's over anyways. And they go to the AFC Championship game with their backup quarterback. Like, my thing is this. You're absolutely right. The Bills had their chances to make it. They had to. We saw this weekend, as we said all in this preview, special teams and defense mattered. They matter. It's not just, I want to see Josh Allen with the ball. Of course we do, because it was a great game. But these games have to end.
And it still was a great game. Like the way, the way it ended, it was still a great game.
And if you don't like coin tosses, then I have a proposal. The visiting team should get the goddamn football. They are the team that doesn't have home field advantage, and they took the home team to overtime. So screw you, home team. You had the advantage. You had everything going in your favor. You're the higher seed. You probably won more games, whatever it may be. You should, all right, fine. Give the ball to the kicking team. Give the ball to the away team. They earned it by making it to overtime with you in your home stadium. You want to talk about that? I'm fine with that.
Or maybe you do it where you alternate, just like you do in the game. If you kicked off first, you receive at the half. But now you kick off if you go to overtime. If you choose to receive,
you have to make that decision at the beginning.
So that factors into the very beginning of the game
coin
too.
Toss, beginning of the game. I'm very comfortable with that.
Because then at least you could say, oh, this wasn't just decided now. This was decided at the beginning of the game when no one knew how anything was transpiring.
You made the choice to say, if we kick, we win the coin toss. If we kick, that means you're deferring if it goes to overtime. You know what I mean? Or like if you receive, that means you're deferring if it goes to overtime. If you know what I mean? I'm comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with that. One coin toss to decide the possession every time there's a break. I just think, you know what? I just think it's one of those things where it's nothing perfect to it. You have to end the game. And in a world where we're getting more and more participation trophy stuff, listen, the Bills had a chance.
Yeah.
You could go on onside kick it. Like,
and then two chances too.
Yeah.
You know?
You had two chances on defense to get a field goal. You know what I mean? To stop them, stop a field goal, to stop a touchdown. It couldn't do it. The better team, the Kansas City Chiefs are a better team by a slight margin, but
Agreed.
That's the way it landed. Again, it's painful because Josh Allen is so good and he's so unique. But now we get to see Joe Burrow. He gets his chance. He gets his chance with it, to prove that maybe I'm the one who's the rightful challenger to Aaron Mahomes.
Sometimes it's not fair to be in the same conference as dominant people. Yeah. Jordan had his issues with the Pistons over those years. He had his issues with the Knicks. Right?
And then he prevented a lot of people getting a Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Patrick Mahomes had his issues with Tom Brady. He would have been in that Super Bowl. He would have won another Super Bowl. And now maybe Brady's gone. Maybe Brady is the bad boy Pistons for Mahomes. And now
there you go. Absolutely.
Now it opens on up.
Yep. That's just how it works. That's life, man.
And Aaron Rodgers, you can't say that Brady prevented him from getting Super Bowl except for one time.
That's the thing.
He just couldn't get to him.
Yeah. Like who was in his way? No one was in his way, really. Over all these
Russell
years.
Wilson. Yeah. Who's represented the AFC? Eli Manning. I mean, who's represented the NFC during his time?
Yeah, as dominance, really it hasn't. Nobody's not owned that conference, and
Jimmy G
he's had
twice.
the opportunity. He's had that opportunity. Jared Goff,
Jared Goff. I'm
so
telling you,
it's
legacy hurting loss. All right, let's get on to a preview.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Bengals Chiefs first game, 3:00 Sunday, CBS game to open things up. I have the Chiefs. I like the way they're so good. They are so incredibly good.
Yeah.
The Bengals have had to play. They didn't play very well last week, and they barely beat a team that I still consider, like, obviously I picked Tennessee to win. I'll own that. I didn't think they were going to win convincingly. I thought they would get crushed this week. So, conversely, the Bengals, it wasn't a wow, that was an awe-inspiring win. I'll give them credit. They won despite not playing very well, and they hit a lot of big-time field goals, and Joe Burrow made the plays when necessary. But my goodness, you're going to tell me that they're going to go toe-to-toe right now in this current Bengals team, going toe-to-toe with this current Chiefs team? I'm just not seeing it, man. Like, I feel that the Chiefs are going to win fairly handily, and I think the Bengals are going to take a lot of confidence going into this offseason, saying, hey, we made it to the AFC Championship game. Yeah, we lost to the Chiefs by 10. We'll come back better, stronger, ready to attack it. But that Chiefs front can get after you, and we've seen how bad that Bengals O-line has been at times, particularly this past week. That to me will be probably more the difference maker than anything else, is that I think the Chiefs defense is going to be able to create enough havoc.
I think the best thing the Chiefs have going for them here is that they lost that game to Cincy earlier in the year, in week 17. What was it? To help them basically lose the 1 seed. They can draw so much motivation and anger from that. There's no way it's a letdown spot. First off, it's an AFC Championship game. If you're not
get up for that,
then you got other issues. Second off, I think they're just overall the better roster with way more experience in these big games. And thirdly, they lost. I mean, they lost in Cincy. They know what Joe Burrow's capable of. They know what Jamar Chase is capable of. They know what Joe Mixon is capable of. They're not going to take this team lightly. They lost to them and prevented them from having home field advantage. Now that's worked out, they've gotten it anyways, thanks to Cincinnati. So I think that's going for them. But I also think, again, Cincy has complete house money.
No question about that.
I think this game is close at half. I wouldn't even shock me if the Bengals lead at half. But I think you'll see Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team like a sleeping giant. All it takes for them is a 3-minute stretch. It's all it takes. They can score on one play, 2-3 play drives, get a quick 3 and out, and then do it again. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, there you go. Thanks for coming out, Bengals. I think it'll be a fun game. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I think it's going to be an over game. I think the Chiefs end up covering, though, the 7 points early. If you can get the Bengals, if the line goes anywhere where you can get the Bengals plus 8, 9, something like that, I would definitely take the Bengals in that. I think it's close. I think it's about a touchdown or around that. If it's anything where the Bengals start, if the line starts moving where Bengals under 7, like plus 6.5, I'd stay away. I think Kansas City's just too dangerous to score too quickly. And they just have been here before. Even though the Bengals are playing with house money, the Chiefs have so much experience in this moment with Andy Reid. I think it's a coaching mismatch. Love the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm a little bit slightly more bullish on them, but we both agree they're going to win. I think they'll win by double digits, 10 to 13 points is kind of the window I'm giving the Chiefs here.
Gotcha.
Too much firepower, and I think the Bengals might try and force themselves to get into a shootout too early instead of maybe relying more on Joe Mixon and letting that kind of play out. I could see that happening just because of the pressure of knowing Mahomes is on the other side there and feel like you're having to keep up. So I actually could see them being down early, fighting to get back and kind of abandoning the run early on and things like that. Still getting somewhat within reach because, they have Burrow and Chase and those things, but Kansas City then able to just, saying, okay, well, we'll go tit for tat here the entire rest of the way. And I just, I see that kind of playing out that way. Plus it's at Arrowhead, tough environment, tough place to play. Kansas City goes back to the Super Bowl, yet again. And at this point, I think just Kansas City will probably end up winning the Super Bowl, but that's for another week. Those are the predictions there. The only other game, 49ers at the Rams. We've talked about Kyle Shanahan owning McVay, particularly this season, as well as they swept their division rival in 2 games. Now, obviously, the first game was by, was it 20 points or something like that? Second game was a 3-point game at the end of the season to win it. Obviously, they really narrowed that gap, did the Rams. And it's tough to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times. Rams are a little bit better prepared, a little bit healthier this time around. And the 49ers aren't necessarily just playing great. I mean, the one thing the Rams can say is they can actually take some really good play and momentum into this game, whereas the 49ers have really just gotten by. So that could be a little bit concerning, not to mention, this is the Rams doing this at home at SoFi and looking to be the second team in a row. How about that, to go play the Super Bowl at their home stadium after it had never been done before? It could potentially happen 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I love the Rams in this game. A lot of the things I feel similarly about the Chiefs. Again, the Rams losing in week 18 in overtime at home to the Niners to let them in, to then get them again, I think is great for the Rams and their confidence of going into this game. Listen, it's on Sean McVay. What's the game plan like? He has got more pressure on him than anyone else this weekend because Shanahan has owned you. He's owned you. And I really, really feel as though Sean McVay has got to have a great game. I'll say this. What would scare me about this game is if it's low scoring going into the third. If it's 10-13, that means the Rams have turned the ball over, they've punted, and that's scary. The Rams offense has to be clicking because the Niners, I just don't believe when push comes to shove, they'll be able to score. You've got to get the Niners dropping back, throwing the ball. Let Donald, let Von Miller go after them. Don't let Trent Williams be a bleeping lead block fullback, which is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. That video that kept circling around.
He destroyed people.
You cannot let that Niners team be playing football in the second half. Yeah. It has to be the Niners making throws. And so I will predict the Rams to win as well. I think the Rams will I don't think it's easy, but I think they pull away in the fourth. I think Stafford has a big game. I think he's playing with all the confidence in the world right now. And maybe that's a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. I think the Rams will win something along the lines 30-20, and they take care of business. Dan, so we both predict Chiefs Rams. So can we quickly just go here to wrap up the show? We didn't prepare this. There's 4 possible matchups. Rank the matchups in which you think the NFL would like to see.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Put your Roger Goodell hat on. Ratings, juicy storylines. What do you think they'd like to see? Because I think it's pretty obvious. Rams and Chiefs number 1.
Number
right?
1. I would agree with that. I would think number 2 would be Chiefs 49ers.
I would agree. Rematch. And there's great storylines with Jimmy G then. Because if the Niners get there, Jimmy G's made it. He played well. And then it's like, what do the Niners do?
Yeah, you're going to let the guy walk?
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, do you let Trey Lance sit for another year? Maybe you do. Just give Trey Lance all the time in the world. There's no pressure to get Trey Lance going if Jimmy G plays well. So I think that's a really, really unique storyline. I'd agree with you. That's got to be number 2.
Yeah, and then number 3 would probably be Bengals Rams. Once again, just getting
Agreed.
The Rams back in SoFi, get that LA fan base. Not to mention the Bengals, the Cinderella story. Cool aspect there, but having 2 high-powered offenses go head-to-head is more enticing than Bengals 49ers, in which case you may get a little bit more of a slugfest than a aerial attack, so to speak. So that's how I'd rate those.
I would put them 3, but I think it's closer than you think that they would be. That would be the number 2 rating, and here's why. Dynasties are great, and Mahomes being Mahomes is great. It's great because it gets the average person, the people who don't watch football every week, they'll hear the Mahomes name, like they start hearing Brady name, like, oh, just over and over and over and over and over and over again. So you want those 2 or 3 people constantly in your sport, like LeBron, like Steph Curry, that my mom can go, oh yeah, I know Patrick Mahomes, and that's cool, and then you tune in. But I will say, having Joe Burrow unseat Mahomes and having another young quarterback, to then you would have Lamar has an MVP, Allen's maybe the most talented or just as talented as Mahomes, and then you have a guy like Burrow who beat Mahomes. Like, having that storyline of the young quarterbacks in the AFC being more level than you think, instead of just Mahomes is Mahomes and no one can beat Mahomes, I think that's really juicy for the more casual NFL fans. Like, the more, like, I watch weekly, I watch my team and then some, and the people like us who are NFL junkies, that is juicy storylines. And then I think Burrow versus the Niners would be the 4th spot, just because you don't get the Rams home field storyline. You don't get the fact that the Chiefs would have the history of going through trying to beat Tampa at their home and then the Rams at their home. Mahomes would always get to say, hey guys, I know I lost 2 Super Bowls, but for the love of Christ, I had to do it in Tampa and in LA against the home teams.
Yeah.
You would have those storylines going for him to keep his legacy afloat, unlike Rodgers' legacy being tarnished. Yes, I'll keep reminding everyone the Rodgers legacy should be tarnished. But I don't think it's a bad storyline because, again, you get the Joe Burrow beat Mahomes somehow, and then you get the juiciness of what the heck are the Niners going to do if they win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G and they traded all these picks to get Trey Lance.
Yeah. Now it's intriguing. I mean, honestly, all of these storylines would have benefits to them one way or the other. It's a win-win for the NFL across the board. But I mean, man, if the Chiefs get there, Mark, and we're talking about 3 years in a row, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes potentially having 2 Super Bowls in, his first 5 years. That, we're talking, okay, this could be a legitimate dynasty now instead of something that we hope will happen or we think will happen. Then the conversation really gets to, cranks up because of that.
Well, even the factor that we have an AFC dynasty, even if they lose,
right?
I mean,
right.
to a Rams team, like it's great to know, like, again, like, listen, the road just goes to who's going to beat Mahomes. Like Mahomes, well, a lot of it will have the game plays out, but I mean, I don't think there's going to be much of a dynasty, dude. I mean, the Panthers just signed Ben McAdoo to be their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, right.
Look out for the Panthers, man. They're going to be a juggernaut.
I mean, are we going to be talking about Patrick Mahomes versus, Tom Brady being unseated in the NFC now by Sam Darnold? Is it going to be Sam Darnold versus Aaron Rodgers for the next several years? I mean,
and look out. Woo. I mean, the Bears are probably going to end up signing Eberflus, a defensive coordinator for the
if that happens, good God.
And so look out. I mean, Eberflus.
You joke, but
there's reports that Eberflus blew them away. I'm going to blow my brains out. Please. I don't care if Brian Dable says no. You don't let him say no. Offer him the goddamn keys to the farm and then some.
No, I think you're literally advocating for them sticking the Chicago mob on him and forcing him to take the job. I think that's what you're alluding to.
Free Lou Malnati's for life. What does it take? Dable, say yes.
We'll give you 5 Portillo's franchises. Just something.
Yeah, whatever.
Anything at all.
Oh, give your children free college. Free college.
I think he's good with that. I don't think he has to worry about that.
It's going to be that. I just know it. Look at the people who are in the Final Four. Even Zach Taylor, young offensive minds or better offensive minds. Yep. That's the way this league is. If you think you have a special quarterback, listen, one of the reasons why the Bills aren't there and the Chiefs are, Andy Reid versus listen, we both like Sean McDermott a lot, but he's a defensive guy, and his defense made horrific mistakes late in the game. It cost Josh Allen. And I'm just saying this. Offensive, if you think you have a special talent at the quarterback position, for the love of Christ, hire a young offensive mind who has proven it, and Brian Dable, or Byron Leftwich, throw the bag at him. I don't care. Just get them. Jim Harbaugh, offensive guy, get them in your organization, or at least a proven defensive head coach in Flores, not Eberflus.
This has been your weekly PSA from Mark Hespin. We need the NBC The More You Know graphic just going across. Da, 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 da.
It's going to be Eberflus. I just know it.
Let's hope not. All right. Well, we'll be back here next week, of course, to talk about the Super Bowl matchup. We will have our Super Bowl teams here.
Maybe some coaching hires.
Maybe some coaching hires. Who knows? A lot can happen. Pro Bowl. We're all really, really excited about the Pro Bowl game.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely see what the line is on that one. But really exciting matchups this weekend. As always, check us out on Facebook, Twitter. We'll have all of our good stuff there. You see it below if you're watching on YouTube, our handles. Go check us out. Check out our show. Follow along. Let us know your thoughts. Excited for the final week of the NFL playoffs. And then now we're getting ready for the Super Bowl pretty soon. So enjoy the games, everyone. Stay safe as always. Get your nachos ready. Get all that fun stuff because it's going to be another probable wild weekend of NFL football. The last actual weekend, really. I mean, I guess this past one was, but this upcoming Sunday should still be really fun with 2 minutes.
Agreed.
Looking forward to it. We'll see you all here next week.